Hey there, it's Leona. Welcome to Zen Mindfulness Shodo. Today, we're gonna practice Shodo meditation while focusing on the Kanji character for 8. So, let's begin our beautiful journey together. When you write a character, imagine a square about the size of the character that you are gonna write like this. First, I'm gonna write it. Then I'm gonna explain the points and tips for writing the character beautifully in detail. Now, I'm gonna explain in detail the points and tips for writing this character beautifully. The first stroke starts from a point, a bit lower than the center point of the top left square, or slightly to the left. Place the brush at about a 45-degree angle, while holding it straight up. Before you move the brush, lightly push the brush towards the tip of it and stabilize the brush. After you stabilize the brush, at about a 45 to 60 degree angle and scoops downward to the left while curving down and getting thinner. When writing a character 8 of about this size, aim to make the bottom part a bit longer than the top part above the middle horizontal line. From the end point of the first stroke, move the brush upward to the right like this. And the second stroke starts from a point a bit higher than and to the right of the beginning point of the first stroke. Attach only the tip of the brush to the paper at the starting point, about this much. And move it to the right just a tiny bit. Before moving downward to the right, the angle of the stroke is about 45 degrees, and you might not be able to tell just from looking at this line. But when writing it, I'm writing it with a very slight upward curve. This stroke moves downward to the right, while getting thicker. When it comes to almost the same height as the end point of the first stroke, it lightly stops there for a second, and checks to the right. Gradually lift the brush from the paper as it moves to the right. Let the tip of the brush leave the paper to create the pointy part. One of the key points for writing the kanji character for 8 in a well-balanced and beautiful way is the angle and length of the strokes, I think. I'm gonna write an example here. If you write this character like this, the angle of the first stroke is about 45 degrees and closer to the middle horizontal line. This angle is about 60 degrees. So it's a bit closer to the middle horizontal line. Even if the angle of the first stroke is about 45 degrees, it's possible to write it in a well-balanced way with the second stroke. But in this case, since the first and second strokes are written to appear symmetrical, it might look like the two lines are spread too far apart. I think it looks better balanced and more like a beautiful kanji character 8 if you write the first stroke at a slightly steeper angle and make it look a bit shorter than the second stroke, and change the angles of the two strokes slightly and write them in a non-symmetrical way. Instead of writing it symmetrically, I think it looks better balanced as the kanji character 8 when the second stroke starts from a point a bit to the left of the middle vertical line, so that the two spaces below look about the same size, around here. I'm referring to these two spaces. Writing it this way, it might also look like the katakana character ha. So in order to more clearly express the difference, it might be better not to write it looking symmetrical along the middle vertical line. Another point is the height of the starting points of the two strokes. For example, if you write it like this, where the starting point of the second stroke is lower than the starting point of the first stroke, it looks a bit unbalanced as the kanji character 8. So I recommend starting the second stroke from a higher position than the beginning point of the first stroke. The height of the ending points of the strokes also affects the overall balance of the character. These are the examples. The example on the left shows the case where the ending point of the second stroke is higher than the ending point of the first stroke. And the example on the right shows the case where the ending point of the second stroke is lower than the ending point of the first stroke. In the example on the left, since the ending point of the second stroke ends at a higher position than the starting point of the first stroke, the entire character looks like it's tilting to the left. The fact that the thickest part of the ending point of the second stroke is not around the same height as the ending point of the first stroke makes the overall balance of the character look poor and appear to lack stability. On the other hand, if the ending point of the second stroke is lower than the first stroke, the entire character looks like it's being pulled down to the right, resulting the character 8, giving a heavy impression. So the point is to write the ending points, or the lowest points of the two strokes. Of course, not exactly the same, but at a glance appearing to be around the same height. By doing so, you can write the character 8 in a more stable and well-balanced way. Let's practice together while referring to the points and tips I've explained so far. If you're interested, you can buy this on Amazon. See the link in the description. Alright, let's start practicing together. Before you start writing, take a deep breath and clear your mind. Slowly breathe in as much as you can through your nose and exhale all the negative emotions that you've been holding until this moment through your mouth. When you are mentally ready to write, you can start writing. Check the starting point, end point, the angle of the stroke, and the direction of the curve. After that, without hesitation, aim for the end point and move the brush smoothly. Try to write slower than you normally write, putting your heart and soul into each stroke. However, if you move the brush too slowly, the ink will bleed and the lines will become thicker in areas where you don't want them to be thicker. And if you move the brush too quickly, the ink will fade and the lines will become thinner in areas where you don't want them to be thinner. Or the ink will disappear midway through, making the strokes shorter than you want them to be. So, concentrate on finding the right speed. Once you've finished writing the character, look at the character as a whole and think about what changes you should make next in order to make it look even more beautiful. Try analyzing the character you've written, considering various aspects such as whether the angle of the first stroke is closer to the middle horizontal line than 45 degrees, whether the length of the first stroke is not too long or too short in relation to the size of the square box, whether the starting point of the second stroke is higher than the starting point of the first stroke, whether the angle of the second stroke has a good balance with the first stroke, whether it gradually gets thicker as it moves downward to the right, whether the ending points of the two strokes appear to be at about the same height, and so on. Of course, you don't have to take all the tips and points that I've told you and copy my way of writing the character. Trust your own sense of beauty and adjust accordingly. It's important that you're satisfied with the shapes of the characters you write. So, please use my tips and points as ideas and hints for adjusting the shape of the character to your sense of beauty. Of course, you can't change the shape so much that it no longer looks like a character. Alright, let's practice together again in my next video. Thank you for watching.